Hello, everyone. Welcome to Anime Dreams, where imagination meets the world of anime. Today's fanfiction topic is: what if time and reality collide for a female Naruto? Part 2. Disclaimer: this content is created purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any of the anime footage featured in this video. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Without further ado, let's dive in. Nagisa entered her mindscape on their first night in Uzushio. She and Indra had chosen the largest room, its bed spacious enough to accommodate 4 or 5 people. As shinobi, they had shared tents before, making this arrangement nothing unusual. She recalled how, as a new Genin, Sakura had insisted on having her own tent. At the time, Nagisa hadn't been able to afford one, only managing a sleeping bag. Since Kakashi didn't trust Sakura to share a tent with Sasuke, and Sasuke would have outright refused, he had allowed Nagisa to share with him instead. Pakun had always been close by, though she wasn't sure if Kakashi realized she had noticed. In any case, Nagisa and Indra had no issue sharing a room, it was simply more practical in this unfamiliar timeline. Her mindscape appeared the same as always, a dim, sewer-like expanse. However, unlike before, the once sealed gates that had confined Kurama were now wide open. Her pale eyes scanned the space, searching for her friend and partner. Yet, despite his immense size and unmistakable orange-red fur, there was no sign of him. "Kurama!" she called out, concern creeping into her voice. She stepped beyond the open gates, venturing into the shadowed depths of the cage. Turning in a full circle, she searched for any trace of him, but found nothing. Her breath hitched in alarm. The Shiki Fujin seal remained, yet Kurama was nowhere to be seen. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a darkened area at the back of the space. It resembled the entrance to a cave. Hoping it would lead her to him, she stepped forward and entered the darkness. Her Byakugan activated instinctively. The sudden rush of sensory input startled her. She was still adjusting to the nearly 360-degree vision, the ability to see through solid objects, and the perception of chakra flows. If she had always possessed this dojutsu, she didn't remember, but its recent activation meant she was still learning to control it. Emerging from the tunnel, she found herself in an entirely different space, likely another mindscape, as she knew this place wasn't part of her own. The first thing she saw was a massive fox, bound and suspended atop a floating rock, or perhaps it was meant to be a moon. "Kurama!" she shouted, immediately running toward him. He remained unresponsive, even when she leapt onto the floating sphere where he was chained. Acting on instinct, she adjusted her footing to stay balanced in case he woke abruptly. Kurama wasn't exactly known for his patience, especially when roused from rest. "Kurama, are you all right? Say something, you oversized fluffball," she demanded. His nose twitched slightly, his whiskers giving the barest of movements. Climbing onto his head, she tugged playfully at one of his ears, a peculiar sensation, given that he was a manifestation of pure chakra. "Kurama," that Tsuki no Usagi called. "She wants her ears back," she teased. In an instant, his crimson eyes snapped open, and his body jerked against the chains restraining him. Nagisa laughed, holding onto his ear to keep from falling. As he calmed, he let out a huff of irritation. "Brat, how many times have I told you not to compare me to rabbits?" he growled. She rubbed the back of her head, flashing a sheepish grin. "Not two." "And?" he prompted expectantly. "Or you'd flood my mind with images disturbing enough to send me into therapy for life," she sighed. "Exactly," Kurama rumbled, his gaze sweeping his surroundings. Then, with a sharp snarl, he muttered, "Oh, not this again." "You recognize this place?" Nagisa asked, frowning. "This is one of my old prisons," he muttered darkly. "I can't tell if it belongs to your mother or Mito. Both had a fondness for binding me with their chains. Though, I'll admit, Kushina had a stronger hold on them, likely due to her unique chakra." "Why can't you tell for sure?" she asked, curiosity mingling with concern. Mito and Kushina possessed similar chakra, given their shared Uzumaki lineage and close familial ties. Both were daughters of their respective eras' clan heads. I am also feeling drained, despite merging with my past self. My chakra is currently stabilizing, allowing for a new equilibrium. Since I have more life experience, and despite only retaining a fraction of my chakra during the merge, I became the dominant persona instead of my past self. Give me some time to recover, and I'll be able to determine whose seal this is. I see, Nagisa responded thoughtfully. I'm not sure if this helps, but Indra, and I landed in Uzushio, or at least what remains of it. Seeking a more comfortable position, she sat cross-legged on his head, absent-mindedly running her hand through the fur atop it. Kurama raised an inquisitive brow. Indra? We figured it would be unwise to use our real names. There's a high probability that individuals with those names already exist in this timeline. Fair point. So, should I start calling you Asura now, Naruto? He teased. Nagisa snorted. No. I chose the name Nagisa for myself. Uzumaki Nagisa, it suits you. Not to mention, it'll make things less complicated for the two of you in the future, Kurama remarked knowingly. Thanks, Nagisa said hesitantly, picking up on his tone but unsure of his underlying meaning. A brief moment of peace followed, but the tranquility was short-lived. You mentioned Uzushio being in ruins, Kurama said. How long has it been since its fall? Based on what we observed, I'd estimate its destruction occurred between 5 to 10 years ago. That narrows it down, Kurama mused. Mito passed away a few years before Uzushio's downfall. Had she been alive, she would have done everything in her power to rally reinforcements in time to protect the village. Nagisa understood that Kurama wasn't insinuating that Konoha had abandoned its ally. The unexpected alliance of Iwagakure, Kirigakure, and Kumagakure had caught both Konoha and Uzushio off guard. The timing had left Konoha unable to mobilize reinforcements in time. By the time the message reached them and enough shinobi were freed from other battles, it was already too late. The once thriving land was reduced to a battlefield, its soil soaked with blood. Survivors had fled, and the village had been sealed, accessible only to an Uzumaki. The destruction of Uzushio Gakure had laid the foundation for the Third Shinobi War. Nagisa recalled that Kushina may have returned to Uzushio at some point, though there was no definitive record of it. Jiraiya had never mentioned such an event, and she had never thought to ask. Kurama's next words pulled her from her thoughts. There's no doubt about it, this is Kushina's seal. That means you could be anywhere just before or during the Third Shinobi War. Nagisa sighed. I was afraid of that. It wasn't that she was unhappy to learn that her mother's counterpart in this timeline was still alive, though, perhaps, she should start considering her more as a cousin now, but the situation with Kurama complicated matters. They both knew she couldn't release him just yet. If Kushina were to check on the bijou and find him missing, it would raise suspicion. Though Kurama admitted that Kushina only visited him once every few months, from both his past and present memories, she was due for a visit in just a few days. Their plan was simple, gradually weaken the chains binding him. Since they bore striking similarities to her own, Nagisa could easily undo them. By the end of the month, Kurama would be free, residing peacefully within her seal. However, when Kushina's next visit approached, they would have to reapply the chains, temporarily restoring him to his former confinement. Kurama wasn't pleased with the arrangement, but at least he would only have to endure the imprisonment for a few hours every few months. With the seals linked, it didn't matter whose seal he was in. Both Nagisa and Kushina could still access his chakra when needed, ensuring that Kushina wouldn't detect any discrepancies. 2 weeks later, during their exploration of the Uzumaki compound, Nagisa and Indra stumbled upon the long-hidden Uzumaki vault. While investigating an old shrine at the far end of the property, they noticed an intricate seal embedded in the floor. When they channeled chakra into it, the seal glowed faintly. Upon closer examination, Nagisa realized it was designed to ensnare intruders in a genjutsu, making the floor appear unremarkable. It was only by chance that they had viewed it using their dojutsu that day. As the seal recognized Nagisa's Uzumaki heritage, A hidden staircase was revealed, leading down into a vast, circular chamber. The floor, seemingly made of concrete or a similar material, bore the largest Uzumaki spiral she had ever seen. The room appeared to double as a sealing chamber. Lining the walls were countless bookshelves, each filled with ancient texts and scrolls. Near some of the shelves, nearly imperceptible doors were branded with intricate seals identical to the one above. Nagisa deduced that these concealed additional clan treasures, perhaps armories, treasuries, or other secured repositories. They must have stored everything of value here. This is essentially the clan's hidden library, Nagisa murmured, turning in a slow circle to take in the enormity of the discovery. She was astonished that she and Jiraiya had overlooked this vault before. Then again, their prior visit had only lasted a day, whereas it had taken her and Indra 2 weeks to uncover this secret. We should search the area thoroughly, Indra suggested. He knew Nagisa wanted to continue her studies in Fuinjutsu. Given the Uzumaki clan's expertise in sealing techniques, he wouldn't be surprised if a significant portion of the archive was dedicated to that very subject. Before delving into the books and scrolls, they decided to inspect the other 3 rooms. The first room on the far left contained chests filled with family heirlooms, ornate crowns reminiscent of the one Uzumaki Mito had once worn, as well as an assortment of priceless jewels, stacks of ryo, and bars of gold. It looks like this is the Uzumaki treasury, Nagisa noted, eyes scanning the wealth before her. This discovery meant they wouldn't have to worry about being completely broke. Even a single chest from this vault contained a small fortune. Nagisa was well aware that Kushina had reclaimed her status as the Uzumaki heiress following the fall of Uzushio and the passing of her older sister. However, even she was uncertain whether Kushina knew about the hidden chambers beneath the Uzumaki shrine. Her parents had left her an inheritance, though it amounted to little more than a well-funded bank account and the home they had shared before their passing. Most assumed that Iwa, Kiri, and Kumo had looted the village of its treasures before the barrier had been raised. Since this chamber housed the wealth of successive clan heads, it suggested that the other clan members had safeguarded their riches elsewhere, likely in a bank. Not that it concerned Nagisa. Having grown up with only the essentials, wealth had never been something she deeply desired. Once we leave Uzu, at least we won't be penniless. We can send some clones to the mainland later to gather supplies, Indra assured her as they stepped through the second doorway. The room mirrored the first in design, yet every wall was adorned with what resembled an intricate tapestry, depicting the genealogy of both the Uzumaki main and branch families. Even those who had married into or out of the clan were recorded. The chamber itself was nearly as vast as the main hall. I never imagined they could document the clan this extensively, Nagisa murmured in awe, tracing her fingers along the tapestry until she found the last recorded clan head, her own family, including her aunt and now surrogate mother, Uzumaki Benihime. Below Benihime's name were her birth and death dates. Adjacent to her name was her partner's, with a line extending downward to an empty space where their child's name should have been. It seems to update itself, Indra observed. Some entries had been recorded even after Uzushio's downfall, implying either someone had remained behind to maintain the records or the tapestry was enchanted to register new births automatically. Most likely the work of advanced Fuinjutsu, Nagisa speculated. Activating her Byakugan, she discovered that intricate seals covered every inch of the chamber. As her vision returned to normal, she inadvertently let her chakra flow into the tapestry at Benihime's name, triggering the seals surrounding it. The air in the room grew humid before swiftly cooling. You are correct, child. This chamber was created when the clan was first founded centuries ago, a warm, feminine voice echoed through the silence. Nagisa and Indra spun around instantly, their expressions shifting from curiosity to astonishment. Standing at the center of the room was a strikingly beautiful woman who bore a strong resemblance to Nagisa, especially in certain features. She possessed long, flowing red hair cascading in gentle curls past her knees, violet eyes, and a pale complexion. What was even more astonishing, however, was her translucent form. She was entirely ethereal, like a spirit. Nagisa's eyes widened in sheer panic, and before she could stop herself, she launched into Indra's arms. She clung to him with her arms wrapped around his neck, while the dark-haired man instinctively caught her, holding her in a bridal-style embrace. GHGH ghost. She shrieked, trembling. Indra exhaled sharply, closing his eyes in exasperation. He had nearly forgotten her deep-seated fear of the dead, something that made him wonder how she had ever managed to fight against the Edo Tensei during the war. "She's not a ghost, idiot," he muttered, though he made no effort to drop her or push her away. Truthfully, he didn't mind the closeness. Benihim, amused, simply smiled. "Your companion is correct, Nagisa," the woman said. "I am a chakra imprint, left behind within the seal concealed in this tapestry. When you activated the seal, I was able to manifest. Though I have been observing you since your arrival, I am bound to this chamber, and the chakra sustaining my presence will eventually deplete." Nagisa processed her words carefully. It was a situation she had encountered before, just as she had met her parents within the seal, only for them to vanish once their chakra was exhausted. She slipped from Indra's arms and took a closer look at the woman before her. Her striking red hair and eyes bore an uncanny resemblance to her mother's, and now that Nagisa's own hair had turned red, their similarities became even more pronounced. However, their eyes were not the same. For a fleeting moment, Nagisa thought she noticed something in Benihim's expression, an almost wistful gaze directed at her. It didn't take long to understand why. She was a living embodiment of the child Benihim had lost in life. "But why are you here, aside from safeguarding Uzushio? Now that you have a semi-physical form, what is your purpose?" Indra inquired. Benihim's gaze shifted to him. "I can remain in this space for a few days, perhaps weeks. I believed you could benefit from my knowledge. I am well versed in the intricacies of Uzu no Kuni, and I also wish to assist in your training. I imagine Nagisa is eager to learn more about our clan's history. Given that she was born after Uzushio's downfall, I suspect she knows very little." "You seem incredibly knowledgeable for a mere chakra imprint," Indra observed. Benihim smirked. "That is because I personally designed this seal to leave a part of myself behind. Perhaps chakra imprint is not the most accurate term. In truth, I am a fragment of Uzumaki Benihim's soul, combined with a significant portion of my chakra, bound within this seal to protect what remains of Uzushio." She paused, then added, "As for how I know your true identities, I told you, I have been watching and listening." "So, you're similar to the tailed beasts," Nagisa mused. Benihim nodded. "In a way, yes. However, unlike them, my chakra is finite. Once it depletes, I will cease to exist." She let out a sigh, then took a deep breath, a motion that seemed unnatural, given that she did not require air. "There is something else I wish to do before my time runs out. I want to officially adopt Nagisa as my own." Nagisa's eyes widened in surprise. "Your story is well crafted and believable, but should another Uzumaki ever return to this place and fail to find your name on the family tapestry, they may begin to question it," Benihim explained. Nagisa hesitated. "But you're not really alive. How would you?" She trailed off, unsure if her words would offend her great aunt. Benihim merely smiled. "That is true, but I can still manipulate the tapestry. Place your hand beneath the branch extending from Mai and Jun's names. Focus your chakra, and I will handle the rest." Without much hesitation, Nagisa did as instructed. She directed her chakra into the designated spot, watching as it pulsed with her energy before turning golden. A moment later, a name materialized on the tapestry. Uzumaki Nagisa. Born October 10, 1206 AC. Nagisa's breath caught. It actually worked. For the next 2 weeks, they spent every waking moment in the chamber, aside from eating, sleeping, and taking necessary breaks. Under Benihim's guidance, both Indra and Nagisa absorbed a wealth of knowledge. Then, as her chakra finally reached its limit, Benihim faded away, leaving only the wisdom she had imparted and the legacy she had preserved. During their time in Uzushio Gakure, they had begun restoring the village. The task was daunting with just the two of them, but the use of Cage Bunshine significantly accelerated the process. By the end of the month, the Uzumaki compound, while not as pristine as before the village's downfall, had regained a semblance of order. The surrounding city, too, no longer resembled a war zone. Most, if not all, of the deceased had been located and given proper burials. However, this was no simple feat. Most remains had been reduced to skeletal fragments, tattered clothing, and rusted weapons. Strikingly, they discovered more foreign ninja than Uzushio nin among the fallen, a fact that brought Nagisa a rare sense of smug pride. Days after their arrival, Nagisa and Indra had stumbled upon an old storehouse that had partially withstood the test of time. Inside, they found bags of preserved rice, wheat, milk, and eggs. While some of the storage seals had deteriorated, rendering part of the stock inedible, a significant portion remained intact. More importantly, they discovered an extensive collection of seeds, flowers, vegetables, fruits, and even herbs for culinary, medicinal, and toxic purposes. Nagisa couldn't help but think that Tsunade and Sakura would have appreciated the latter. Amid the ruins, they also uncovered remnants of the Uzukage Tower, along with scattered records buried beneath the debris. Unfortunately, many had succumbed to the relentless passage of time. A partially standing library yielded similar results, though primarily filled with shinobi-related texts. It contained a few civilian books and scrolls. Much of the village's vast knowledge had been lost when the last surviving Uzumaki activated their final defense. This secret seal, known only to those of Uzumaki lineage, had enveloped Uzushio in a protective barrier while annihilating all non-Uzumaki within its borders. Though the village fell, in the end, Uzushio had claimed the last victory. Despite the extensive losses, some valuable scrolls remained. However, due to damaged preservation seals, many were beyond recovery. This realization weighed heavily on Nagisa. These texts were among the last vestiges of her ancestors. To distract herself, she dedicated her efforts to rebuilding the village while acclimating to her new identity and addressing her best friend by his chosen name. After discovering the storehouse, Nagisa established a sizable garden, with sections surrounding the compound. The backyard became home to medicinal and poisonous plants, while fruits and vegetables flourished on either side of the house. In the front, she cultivated an array of flowers, azaleas, violets, lilies, roses, and viscaria, the latter of which grew abundantly across the islands. Keeping her hands busy helped silence the turmoil in her mind. It was only after Benihim's chakra impression finally faded that Nagisa emerged from her state of denial. While cleaning, she came across her pouch, the very same one that had survived their journey to the past. She had set it aside shortly after their first night in the compound, seeing little reason to carry it when they were the only ones on the island. Upon rediscovering it, she chided herself for forgetting about its contents. Inside, she found Indra's old forehead protector and, more painfully, a photograph of Team 7, both from their early Jinan days and later, after Sai and Yamato had joined. The weight of reality struck her. She would never see her precious friends again. At least, not as she had known them. She didn't even know if Sakura had survived when they left. Hagoromo and Homura had not revealed that information. Even if she had been alive then, that timeline had either been erased or collapsed in on itself. Either way, those she cherished were gone. I miss them too. Startled, Nagisa turned to find her best friend leaning against the archway to the living room. She sighed, wiping away her tears before glancing down at the photo in her hands. With you, I never really know what you're thinking until we fight, she murmured. Indra snorted before walking over to sit beside her. He had grown accustomed to her white eyes and striking red hair. To anyone unaware of her past, there would be no reason to believe she had once looked different. But he remembered. He could still picture her bright blue eyes and golden hair, tied up in short pigtails. Her transformation had been drastic. Once clad in her loud, unmistakable orange attire, she had stood out even more than she did now. At first, it had felt like looking at a stranger, and he had missed the girl he had known. But over time, he realized that despite the change in appearance, she was still the same Nagisa, cheerful, brash, unpredictable. The very qualities he had grown to appreciate, even if he never openly admitted it. The realization that their counterparts in this timeline would not be the same as those they had left behind had settled over him. He had expected Nagisa to break down sooner, but between burying the dead, restoring the compound, and undergoing Benihim's training, there had been little time for reflection. Unlike her, he had mourned in silence, without shedding as many tears, keeping his emotions private. He had never been one to openly express such feelings. Sometimes, he wondered if that was why he needed a friend like Nagisa, to keep him grounded, to serve as his moral compass. He had realized long ago that without her presence, he would be lost. Even back in Sound, he had clung to the knowledge that he had not killed her during their battle at the Valley of the End. "You know me better than anyone, just as I know you," Indra said after a moment. "You're blaming yourself for what happened to our timeline. You miss our friends." Nagisa offered a faint smile, glancing at him as her long pigtails shifted with her movement. "You said our friends." "Hush," Indra retorted before continuing. "None of this was your fault. If you want to blame someone, then blame Kaguya, Black Zetsu, Madara, Obito. Hell, even I share some of the responsibility." "Indra, none of this was your fault," Nagisa exclaimed, taken aback. "It is true. I should have listened to you sooner. I had the opportunity to end the Mugen Tsukuyomi and avoid this confrontation altogether, yet I chose to oppose the idea of peace even after Kaguya was defeated. That decision led to Sakura being unable to provide the medical attention we needed, leaving us without her healing abilities. In the end, it was my fault." "You're such an idiot," Nagisa remarked, placing a hand near her thigh. "But I don't blame you, and I'm sure neither Sakura nor Kakashi does either. Even the Sage of Six Paths and Homura didn't seem to hold you responsible. Listen, if I can't blame myself, then you shouldn't blame yourself either. The ones truly at fault are Black Zetsu and Kaguya, can we at least agree on that?" "And what about Madara and Obito?" Indra finally asked, briefly realizing that his hand had unconsciously covered Nagisa's. She shrugged. "They share responsibility as well, but I can understand their circumstances. Black Zetsu manipulated Madara, possibly even before Izuna's death. We both know how devastating it is to lose someone dear, it's when a person is most vulnerable. And as for Obito, he was practically brainwashed, forced to witness the death of the girl he loved at the hands of his closest friend. That kind of trauma would break anyone, except maybe a complete sociopath. Their actions aren't excusable, but they aren't the sole ones to blame either." Indra nodded, a small smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. Trust Nagisa to seek the good even in her enemies. "Come on, let's see if we can find a frame for those." Nagisa smiled and nodded. If she wanted to keep the photos in plain sight, she would need to apply a special seal. The Uzumaki clan had a natural weakness to genjutsu, but over time, they had developed loopholes to counteract it. Fuinjutsu was only limited by one's skill and imagination, Benihim had taught her that. During her research in the Uzumaki vault over the past month, she had discovered several seals designed specifically to interact with illusions. With her understanding of the technique, crafting a Genjutsu Fuinjutsu hybrid seal wouldn't be too difficult. In the end, she would inscribe an invisible chakra-infused seal on the back of the photo. Anyone not keyed into the seal would see a different image, a team of shinobi, but not one that resembled the Team 7 of this world. Still holding Indra's hand, the two quietly left the room. Dear YouTube family, that concludes this part of the story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel for more content. Thank you for your support. Best regards. Anime Dreams.